Hello, guys, and welcome back to Read Aloud. I wonder what this is about. You like my luscious hair, my luscious curls? Now, these are not corkscrew curls. I'm making one right here. That's more of a corkscrew curl that we'll hear about later. I have my luscious black locks and my hat. I wonder what character we'll be learning about today. Let's find out in the next adventures of Peter Pan. We are at Chapter 5, The Island Come True. Feeling that Peter was on his way back, the Neverland had again woke into life. So the island can actually wake into life like a human. In his absence, things are usually quiet on the island. The fairies take an hour longer in the morning. The beasts attend to their young. And the natives feed heavily for 6 days and 6 nights. And when pirates and lost boys meet, they merely bite their thumbs at each other. But with the coming of Peter, who hates lethargy, being lazy, they're all underway again. If you put your ear to the ground now, you would hear the whole island seething with life. On this evening, the chief forces of the island were disposed as follows. The lost boys were looking out for Peter. The pirates were looking out for the lost boys. The natives were looking out for the pirates. And the beasts were looking out for the natives. They were going round and round on the island, and they did not meet because they were all going the same rate. All wanted blood, except the boys, who liked it as a rule, but tonight they were out to greet their captain. The boys on the island vary, of course, in numbers, according as they get killed and so on, and when they seem to be growing up, which is against the rules. Peter thins them out. Not sure how, but at this time there were 6 of them, counting the twins as 2. Let us pretend to lie here among the sugarcane and watch them as they steal by in single file, each with his hand on his dagger. They are forbidden by Peter to look in the least like him, and they wear skins of bears slain by themselves, in which they are so round and furry that when they fall, they roll. They have therefore become very sure-footed. The first to pass is Toodles, not the least brave, but the most unfortunate of that gallant band. He had been in fewer adventures than any of them, because the big things constantly happened when he just stepped around the corner. All would be quiet. He would take the opportunity of going off to gather a few sticks for firewood. And then, when he returned, all the others would be sweeping up the blood. This ill luck had given his nature a sweetness to it, rather than melancholy to his countenance, so that he was quite the humblest of the boys. Poor, kind Tootles. There is danger in the air for you tonight. Take care, lest an adventure is now offered to you, which, if accepted, will plunge you into the deepest woe. Toodles, the fairy Tink, who is bent on mischief this night, is looking for a tool, and she thinks you the easily tricked of the boys. Beware, Tinkerbell. Would that he could hear us. But we're not really on the island. And he passes by, biting his knuckles. Next comes Nibs, the gay and debonair, followed by Slightly, who cuts whistles out of trees and dances ecstatically to his own tunes. Slightly is the most conceited of the boys. He thinks he remembers the days when he was lost, with their manners and customs, and this has given his nose an offensive tilt. Curly is fourth. He's a pickle, and so often he has had to deliver up his person when Peter says sternly, "Stand forth, the one who did this thing." And now at that command, he stands forth automatically, whether he's done it or not. Last come the twins, who cannot be described because we should be sure to be describing the wrong one. So obviously they're identical twins. Peter never quite knew what twins were. We would get mixed up about it. His band was not allowed to know anything he didn't know, so these two were always vague about themselves and did their best to give satisfaction by keeping close together in an apologetic sort of way, like they were one person, so Peter wouldn't have to think. So how are the boys in relation to Peter? He's their leader. Is he a good leader? I mean, he won't allow them to know anything he doesn't know. And he makes the twins be one person because it confuses him. So, and he's always trying to find out, whose fault things are, which, can be good for a leader, but it depends on how you do it. So he seems very immature in how he deals with people. Why do they follow him? The boys vanish in the gloom, and after a pause, but not a long pause, for things go briskly on the island, come the pirates on their track. We hear them before they're seen, and it is always the same dreadful song. Of us below your hoy to a pirating we go, and if we're parted by a shot, we're sure to meet below. A more villainous lot never hung in a row on execution dock, meaning pirates when they were caught and executed. Here, a little in advance, ever and again, with his head to the ground listening, his great arms bare, pieces of 8 in his ears as ornaments of big coins, is the handsome Italian Cecco, who cut his name in letters of blood on the back of the governor of the prisoner of Gaul. That gigantic man behind him has had many names since he dropped the one with which dusky mothers still terrify their children on the banks of the Guajomo. Here is Bill Jukes, every inch of him tattooed. The same Bill Jukes who got 6 dozen on the Walrus from Flint, another pirate, before he would drop the bag of money. And Cookson, said to be Black Murphy's brother, but this was never proved. And Gentleman Starkey, once an usher in a public school. It's like a private school, really, in England. And still dainty in his ways of killing. And Skylight, Morgan Skylight, and the Irish boatswain Smee, an oddly genial man who stabbed, so to speak, without offense, and was the only nonconformist in Hook's crew. A noodler whose hands were fixed on backwards. And Robert Mullins, and Alf Mason, and many other ruffian long and known and feared on the Spanish Main. In the midst of them, the blackest and largest jewel in that dark setting, reclined James Hook, or as he wrote himself, Jace Hook, of whom it is said the only man that Seacook feared. He lay at ease in a rough chariot, drawn and propelled by his men, and instead of a right hand, he had a hook which ever and anon he encouraged them to increase their pace. As dogs, this terrible man treated and addressed them, and as dogs they obeyed him. In person, he was cadaverous and black of eyes, and his hair was dressed in long curls, which at a long distance looked like black candles, and gave him a singularly threatening countenance to his handsomeness. His eyes were of blue forget-me-nots, and of a profound melancholy, save when he was plunging his hook into you, at which time 2 red spots appeared in them and lit them up horribly. In this manner, something of a grand gentleman clung to him, so that even as he ripped you in the air, I've been told he was a raconteur of repute. He was never more sinister than when he was most polite, which is probably the truest test of breeding, and the elegance of his diction, even when he was swearing, no less than the distinction of his demeanor, showed him one of a different caste than his crew. So caste as in his place in society, importance in society, his level. So he came from a very fine family and acted like the greatest gentleman of the age when he was really a terrible pirate and killed people. A man of indomitable courage. It was said of him that the only thing he shied away from was the color of his own blood, which was thick and of unusual color. So what that's saying is that he was a blue blood. A blue blood was the name you gave to people who were of an aristocratic society, because they literally thought that their blood was different from other people, that they were separate and special. And so he came from that society, and now he's turned into this. Wonder why? In his dress, he somewhat aped the attire associated with Charles II. So he wore this lace and these fancy jackets. And in his mouth, he had a holder of his own contrivance, which enabled him to smoke 2 cigars at once. But undoubtedly, the grimmest part of him was his iron claw. Let us now kill a pirate to show Hook's method. Skylights will do. Poor Skylight. As they pass, Skylight lurches clumsily against Hook, ruffles his lace collar, the Hook shoots forth, there's a tearing sound, one screech, then the body's kicked aside, and the pirate passes on. He has not even taken the cigars from his mouth. Such is the terrible man against whom Peter Pan is pitted. Who will win? On the trail of the pirates, stealing noiselessly down the warpath, which is not visible to inexperienced eyes, come the natives, every one of them with their eyes peeled. They carry tomahawks and knives, and their naked bodies gleam with paint and oil. Strung around them are scalps of boys, as well as of pirates. In the van, the van of people, the line of people, on all fours is Great Big Little Panther, a brave of so many scalps that in his present position they somewhat impede his progress. I mean, he can't even go fast. Bringing up the rear, in the place of greatest danger, comes Tiger Lily, proudly erect, a princess in her own right. She is the most beautiful, coquettish, cold, and amorous by turns. There is not a brave who would not have the wayward thing to wife, but she staves off all altar with a hatchet. Observe how they pass over fallen twigs without making the slightest noise. The only sound to be heard is their somewhat heavy breathing. The fact is, they're all a little fat just now from after the heavy gorging, but in time, they will work this off. For the moment, however, it constitutes their chief danger. The natives disappear, as though they have come like shadows, and soon their place is taken by the beasts. A great and motley procession. Lions, tigers, bears, and innumerable smaller savage things that flee from them, for every kind of beast, and more particularly all man-eaters, live cheek by jowl on the favored island. Their tongues are hanging out. They are hungry tonight. When they have passed, comes the last figure of all, a gigantic crocodile. We shall see for whom she is looking presently. The crocodile passes, but soon the boys appear again, for the procession must continue indefinitely until one of the party stops or changes its pace. Then quickly, they'll be on top of each other. All are keeping a sharp lookout in front, but none suspects that the danger may be creeping up from behind. This shows how real the island was. So it was in their make-believe, in their imaginations, their dreams, and now it's coming true. The first to fall out of the moving circle was the boys. They flung themselves down close to their underground home. "I do wish Peter would come back," every one of them said nervously, though in height and more in breadth. They were all larger than their captain. "I'm the only one who's not afraid of pirates," Slightly said, in a tone that prevented him from being a general favorite. But perhaps some distant sound disturbed him, for he added hastily, "But I wish he would come back and tell us whether he's heard anything more about Cinderella." They talked of Cinderella, and Toodles was confident that his mother must have been very like her. It was only in Peter's absence that they could speak of mothers, the subject being forbidden by him as silly. "All I remember about my mother," Nibs told them, "is that she often said to my father, 'Oh, how I wish I had a checkbook of my own.' I don't know what a checkbook is, but I should love to give my mother one." So the dad took care of all the money and wouldn't let her have any, or controlled what she had. While they talked, they heard a distant sound. You or I, not being wild things of the woods, would have heard nothing. But they heard it, and it was the grim song Yo ho, the pirate life, the flag of skull and bones, a merry hour of hemp and rope, and A for Davy Jones. Once the lost boys, but where are they? They're no longer there. Rabbits could not have disappeared more quickly. So we'll find out what happens next with all these groups circling around. And where is Peter? Where is he all this time? And the children? Wendy especially stuck with Tink? Oh no. We'll have to see what happens next. Tomorrow. Next time in Peter Pan. Bye, guys.